यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जना यमुनातीरावनचारी यमुनातीरावनचारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज विहारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज विहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जना यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जना यमुनातीरावनचारी यमुनातीरावनचारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज विहारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज विहारी जय कृष्ण बलराम जय कृष्ण बलराम कृष्ण बलराम जय कृष्ण बलराम जय गौरानिताय जय गौरानिताय गौरानिताय जय गौरानिताय जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 Jamishnapad Paramahansa Parivrajakacarya Ashtottara Shatarshi Srimati Divine Grace Abhay Charana Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jamishnapad Paramahansa Parivrajakacarya Ashtottara Shatarshi Srimati Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय श्री श्री कृष्ण बलराम की जय श्री श्री गौर निताय की जय जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, chapter 21, text number 25. Prajapati Sutaha Samrat Prajapati Sutaha Samran Prajapati Sutaha Samran Manoho Vikhyata Mangalaha Manurvikhyata Mangalaha Manurvikhyata Mangalaha Brahmavartam Yaha Adivasan Brahmavartam Yodhivasan Brahmavartam Yodhivasam Shasti Sapta Arnavam Mahim Shasti Saptarnavam Mahim Shasti Saptarnavam Mahim Prajapati Sutaha Samran Manurvikhyata Mangalaha Brahmavartam Yodhivasan Shasti Saptarnavam Mahim Prajapati Sutaha Samran Manurvikhyata Mangalaha Brahmavartam Yodhivasan Shasti Saptarnavam Mahim Prajapati Sutaha, the son of Lord Brahma, Samrat, the emperor, Manuhu, Swayambhuva Manu, Vikhyata, well known, Mangalaha, whose righteous acts, Brahma Vartam, Brahmavarta, Yaha, he who, Adhivasan, living in, Shasti, rules, Sapta, 7, Arnavam, oceans, Mahim, the earth. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. The Emperor Swayambhuva Manu, the son of Lord Brahma, who is well known for his righteous acts, has his seat in Brahmavarta and rules over the earth with its 7 oceans. Kindly repeat. The Emperor Swayambhuva Manu, the son of Lord Brahma, who is well known for his righteous acts, has his seat in Brahmavarta and rules over the earth with its 7 oceans. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Sometimes it is stated that Brahmavarta is a part of Kurukshetra, or that Kurukshetra itself is situated in Brahmavarta, because the demigods are recommended to perform spiritual ritualistic performances in Kurukshetra. But in others' opinion, Brahmavarta is a place in Brahmaloka where Swayambhuva ruled. There are many places on the surface of this earth which are also known in the higher planetary systems. We have places on this planet like Vrindavan, Dwaraka, and Mathura, but they are also eternally situated in Krishnaloka. There are many similar names on the surface of the earth, and it may be that in the Bohr age, Swayambhuva Manu ruled this planet as stated here. The word Mangalaha is significant. Mangala means one who is elevated in every respect in the opulences of religious performances, ruling power, cleanliness, and all other good qualities. Vikhyata means celebrated. Swayambhuva Manu was celebrated for all good qualities and opulences. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasyatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mokam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yat kripatamaham mande Shri Gurum Deenataranam. Lord Vishnu is continuing to speak to Kardama Muni. In the previous verse, Lord Vishnu informed Kardama Muni that whatever desire you had in mind with which you worshipped me for 10,000 years, before you have asked me, I have already arranged for it. I made arrangements to fulfill your desire. What is that arrangement that Lord Vishnu has made for satisfying Kardama Muni's desire, which was to obtain a suitable wife who would assist him in execution of his spiritual duties and aid him in fulfilling his duty towards his father, Lord Brahma, who had instructed him to produce progeny. The arrangement Lord Vishnu is explaining here. The emperor of this world at that time was Swayambhuva Manu. Swayambhuva Manu is also a son of Brahma. Brahma is known as Swayambhu, and therefore his son becomes Swayambhuva. And this Swayambhuva Manu, he is referred to here as Prajapati Sutaha. Prajapati refers to Brahma. Prajapati Sutaha Manuhu. The Manu at that point of time was Swayambhuva Manu. Prajapati Sutaha, the son of Brahma, who is Manu, because Brahmaji has many sons. So which son is Vishnu referring to? So Prajapati Suta, the son of Brahma, who is Manu, and who is the Samrat. He is the emperor. Emperor of which place? He is the emperor of Shasti Saptarnavam Mahim Shasti. He is the emperor ruling over the earth, which consists of 7 oceans. And Yaha Brahmavartam Adivasan. Yaha Brahmavartam Adivasan Saptarnava Mahim Shasti. He is ruling over the earth with the 7 oceans from the place known as Brahmavarta. Actually, in this earthly planet, we know 4 oceans. Sometimes they classify it as 5 oceans. The Atlantic, Pacific, Antarctic, and the Southern Ocean, etc. So, what is the 7 oceans that the Bhagavatam is talking about? Actually, in the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, we can see that when the Vedas, they refer to the earth, it does not refer to only one planet, the earth which we are all occupying currently. Even in the Gayatri Mantra, Bhur Bhuvaha Swaha, there are 3 planetary systems. So they are the, earthly planetary system. The earthly planetary system, 3 planetary systems. So they are the earthly planetary system. 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 So Below this is the lower planetary system, Bhuvaha, Bhuvarloka. And then this, and above the earth, there is the Swargaloka. Now the Swargaloka has 7 planetary systems. And the lower nether worlds have another 7 planetary systems. And the middle planetary system is not just one planet, but it is a Bhumandala. It is a combination of several planets referred to as Saptadvipa. 7 planets constitute the middle planetary system, which is Bhumandala. This consists of Jambudvipa, Plakshadvipa, etc., etc. All those names are described in the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, the earthly planetary system, the Bhumandala, comprises 7 planets, which are also referred to as Dvipas or islands, because they are all floating in 7 oceans. So, that's the 7 ocean which is being described here. So, Swayambhuva Manu was not ruling over just this one earth alone. He was ruling over the entire middle planetary system, comprising of the 7 Dvipas. Now, in those 7 Dvipas, they are surrounded by different kinds of ocean. One is an ocean of salt water, like we see. We also have an ocean right next to us. We are on the beach here. It's an ocean of salt water. So, if there can be an ocean of salt water, there are ocean of milk, there is an ocean of honey, there is an ocean of liquor. Freely you can go and drink. For those who are, addicted to intoxication, they'll be very happy to hear this. If you want to drink salt water, you can go to the ocean, nobody will prevent you. So like that ocean of liquor. So, ocean of liquor, ocean of honey, ocean of milk, ocean of salt water, all these kind of 7 kinds of oceans are there, in which these 7 planetary systems are there. Now, if we take one Dvipa, Jambudvipa, like, now the Jambudvipa itself is further divided into 7 Varshas, of which one Varsha is the Ilavrita Varsha. And in that Ilavrita Varsha is our Bharata Varsha. That's how when we chant the Dhyana prayers, when we do the Mangalacharana before taking up any yajna, or we do, Abhishekam, etc., we locate ourselves. Where are we doing this activity? We are doing Abhisheka, for example, for Krishna Balaram. Where are we doing this? Jambudvipe, Bharata Varshe, Bharata Khande, Meroho Dakshine Parshve. So, we are on the southern portion of Meru. We are in Bharata Varsha. In that we are in Bharata Khanda. And we are located, all of this is located in Jambudvipa, which is all part of the Bhumandala. So, we have to understand that when the Shastras, when they speak of the earth, when they speak of Mahim, like it is mentioned here, Saptarnavam Mahim, they are not referring to just this one planet of earth. They are referring to the entire Bhumandala. And in that Bhumandala, the scale is very, very huge. You can imagine, this earth itself is about, today it is measured to be, the surface of the earth is measured to be about 8,000 miles in diameter. Now this earth is just one small portion, and this earth is called Bharata Varsha. And the entire earth is called Bharata Varsha. Of course, today we think that Bharata Varsha means India, but in the Shastras, Bharata Varsha refers to this earth. And this is part of Ilavrita Varsha. And that Ilavrita Varsha is a part of one Jambudvipa. The Jambudvipa itself is, it's very huge in size. The Bhagavatam describes something like 1 million miles or something is the diameter of that. That is one Dvipa. Like that, there are 7 Dvipas, and this constitutes only the Bhumandala. Forget about Bhuvarloka and Swargalokas. From modern science point of view, all these things may be incomprehensible. But reality is, what do we know about this cosmos? Hardly we know anything. Something we are sitting here looking at, taking one telescope and trying to see and understand what is there. But that is a very limited perception you can have of this entire world which is around us. Bhagavatam says the Bhumandala itself, just the Bhumandala, the 7 middle planetary systems, extend till the place where the sun rays reach. We can imagine how far the sun is away from the earth, and in the earth, when you have summer, the sun beats down, it is so intense. Till where the sun rays can travel, till there extends the Bhumandala, only the Bhumandala. So, these are all, when we look at the cosmic scale, it is not possible for us tiny humans to be able to measure all these things and to be able to tell with real confidence and factual accuracy that this is what the cosmos is made up of. Therefore, the Shastras say, Achintya ye khalu bhavaha tam starkena na yojayet. We should not try to understand those things which are beyond our capacity to understand. We should not try to understand them with our logic and our senses, with our sense perception. Achintya ye khalu bhavaha. What is achintya? What we cannot conceive of. Even this earth, to conceive that a body of 8,000 miles in diameter is very difficult for us to conceive of. When we look at this world around us, we see just a flat land. But it is not flat, it is spherical in shape. We cannot make out. We have to simply depend on somebody else telling us. Scientists are telling us the earth is round. Okay, we are accepting. But can we with our senses, can we determine? No matter how big a telescope you have and you look out into the fields, you will see only plain straight land. You will see only flat land. But before today the scientists are saying the earth is spherical. But few decades back, almost a century back or something, before the time of Galileo and all that, the scientists used to say that earth is flat. This is a few hundred years back. But the Bhagavatam 5,000 years ago, it was saying that earth is round in shape. It is an anda. It is shaped like an egg. In fact, even the universe is shaped like an egg. That's what the Bhagavatam is saying. That's what the Vedas are saying. So imagine, before the current understanding that the earth is round in shape, if the scientists of that period, they had heard that Bhagavatam says the earth is round, they would all have laughed. Hey, what are you talking? It is all superstition. But today, 100 years later, they are saying, no, earth is round in shape. So today, they have come to the stage of accepting that the earth is round in shape. But they may not accept these description, that earth is part of one Jambu Dvipa, there are 7 such planets, and there is an ocean of milk and ocean of this one and all that. How can there be an ocean of milk? If there is an ocean of salt water, why there cannot be an ocean of milk and ocean of honey? Very much possible, if you go by that logic. So, today they may not accept it, but who knows, in the future they may send some satellite and they may actually discover there is an ocean of honey somewhere. They will not be able to measure it, of course, but at least they may come to know. Some satellite goes, picks up something and comes, oh, we have made a discovery. There is something like honey, which looks like honey, which tastes like honey, which is there in outer space. Who knows, they will tell in the future. One of their satellites will go discovery and they will pick up something and come. Just like it is said they went to the moon. So they picked up some rock and they came back and said, in the moon, there are rocks. So that means like this world, they are saying rocks are there. And now they are saying there is likelihood of water also there. So slowly they are coming around. So one day they will come back and say, oh, we found honey also, and we found liquor also, we found milk also. So these things and all, see, because science is very nascent, in a very nascent stage. How many years old is science? Hardly few hundred years old. Shri Krishna Balarama So in a few hundred years, you cannot expect to know everything about this universe. We don't even know everything about this world, this particular earthly planet which we are in. Forget about the entire universe. Every day they are discovering new species of life, something that they had never seen, that kind of animal they are seeing. So all these kind of things are going on. So in future, science may be able to validate what the Bhagavatam is saying. We don't know. Until such time, you cannot say that what Bhagavatam is saying is some a superstition or some blind faith or just imaginary descriptions. You cannot say. Because if you have to say that they are imaginary, you have to disprove them. Today, science is not in a position to disprove. Then you have to accept. Until it is disproved, you have to accept it as fact. That's the real logic we have to go by. So, Swayambhuva Manu was ruling over the entire Bhumandala, all the Saptadvipas, Jambudvipa, Plakshadvipa, etc., all of them he was ruling over. And he was ruling over from a place called Brahmavarta. Brahmavartam yo adivasan. He was staying in, his residence was Brahmavarta. As Prabhupada is mentioning here, some people say that Brahmavarta is referring to Kurukshetra. And some people say Kurukshetra is actually a part of the original Brahmavarta. Either way, Prabhupada is giving us an understanding that just like we have a city called Hyderabad in Andhra Pradesh in India, but there is another Hyderabad in Pakistan also. So, and suppose you are booking a flight, if you pick up the wrong Hyderabad, you will end up in Pakistan. So even in this world, there are cities with the same name in different parts. Similarly, there are places in the upper planetary systems. There are places in Swargaloka or the upper planetary systems which are reflected in this earth by the same name. There are even places in the spiritual world. Forget about the Swargalokas or upper planetary systems, which also have reflections in this earth, which have the same name as the places in the spiritual world, like Ayodhya, Mathura, Dwaraka, Vrindavan, the topmost spiritual planet. There is a Vrindavan here also. And that Vrindavan is a replica of the Vrindavan in the spiritual world. So, when it is saying here that Brahmavartam yo adivasan, it may refer to the original Brahmavarta in the upper planetary system, as Prabhupada is mentioning in the Brahmaloka. And from there he might have been ruling all the Bhumandala system. So this Swayambhuva Manu, he was not an ordinary person. He is Vikhyata Mangalaha. He is Vikhyata, very, very famous. Nowadays people become famous for all sorts of reasons. Somebody, blew up the towers in what was the tower? World Trade Center in USA. He became very famous. Osama bin Laden. You blow up something, you create some act of terror, you will become famous. So, but then Swayambhuva Manu was not that kind of famous man. He was Vikhyata Mangalaha. He was famous for his righteous acts. As Prabhupada is mentioning here, Vikhyata means celebrated. Swayambhuva Manu was celebrated for all good qualities and opulences, like religious performances, ruling power, cleanliness, and such other good qualities. So for that, Swayambhuva Manu is famous for. So, a person may become very famous in this material world. There are people in this earthly planet who are famous on this earth. Some people are famous in one country. Some people are famous all over this world. But somebody like Swayambhuva Manu is famous all over this universe. But all such people, even though they may be very famous on account of their various kinds of activities, either by terrorism or by doing some really good activity like Swayambhuva Manu, about them Shukadeva Goswami describes in the first canto of the Bhagavatam tapasvino danapara yashasvino mantravida sumangalaha kshemam na vindanti vinayadarpanam tasmai subhadrashravase namo namaha. He says, I offer my obeisances, namo namaha, I offer my obeisances again and again to Subhadrashravase, to that Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, to hear about whom is very, very auspicious. Subhadrashravase, to hear about Krishna, to hear about Krishna's holy name, to hear about his pastimes, to hear about his instructions, to hear about his devotees, everything is all auspicious. And therefore Krishna is called Subhadrashravasa, one who about whom, anything about whom heard, if one hears, is very auspicious. So, tapasvinaha, there are many kinds of people. Tapasvino, danapara, yasasvino, mantravida, sumangalaha. There are many kinds of sumangalaha who become vikhyata. They become famous for their auspicious activities. There are many kinds of people who become famous for their auspicious activities. First is tapasvinaha, those who perform severe austerities. Just like you see in our country, in India, when the Britishers were ruling over India, there were many freedom fighters who stood up to fight for the cause of liberation from British rule for the country. The foremost among them was Gandhi. Gandhiji, if you see, during his time, he wielded so much clout over the Indian populace. He gave a call for the satyagraha, for the salt satyagraha. Thousands of people converged. He gave a call for non-cooperation. Immediately, the entire country got galvanized. He said, give up everything which is foreign. People came to the streets, brought the goods, imported goods from Britain which they had bought, put it on the streets and set them afire. Can you imagine? Srila Prabhupada also, following in the same vein, he rejected his degree. He said, I am participating in the non-cooperation movement. I don't want your degree given by the British government. The whole country got galvanized. People were all on the streets. They were burning things whichever was foreign made. And they started wearing cloth made with the charka. And there was, Prabhupada mentions how there was one very famous barrister in Bengal, C.R. Das. His remuneration those days, even for one appearance, used to go in thousands of rupees. In today's time, it will be lakhs and lakhs of rupees. He stopped going to the court. He gave up his profession. He said, Gandhiji has called for non-cooperation. I don't want to cooperate with the British laws. He stopped going. Like this, many, many people, they gave up their jobs, they gave up their affluent businesses simply on the call of one person, Gandhiji. And you look at Gandhiji, after independence, after India got independence, all the people in that Congress party which was headed by Gandhiji, they were all fighting for post. I want to become Prime Minister, I want to become President, I want to become Home Minister, I want to become Finance Minister. But what did Gandhiji say? I don't want any post. He had to only tell one word, I want to become Prime Minister or I want to become President. Nobody could have stopped him. But he said, I don't want any post. You all take whatever post you want. I don't want. In fact, he had to play the role of mediator. Two people were fighting for the post of Prime Minister. And he had to call them and tell them, no, don't fight. You become Prime Minister. You become the Home Minister. Enough. Be satisfied with that. Like that, he had to play the mediator. So he wielded so much influence of the whole country. What was not at his disposal? But you look at his life. How was he? Where was he living? He was living in his Sabarmati ashram. In a very simple, very simple accommodation he was living in. He was not living in a 5-star accommodation or something like that. He was sleeping on a charpai and mud thatched roof house and that kind of very simple life he was living. And look at what cloth he used to wear.
he was not even wearing an upper garment. He used to wear just one dhoti, one staff he would hold, and one specs, that's all. And the whole world and the whole country was running after him. Why? Because of his austerity. He was a great tapasvi. So because of that, Gandhiji became famous all over the country. Today, even the world recognizes Gandhiji. Why? Because great tapasvi. There have been many world leaders, Churchill and so many, John F. Kennedy, so many people are there. But none of them command the kind of respect Gandhiji he commanded. Why? Because of the tapasya that he displayed, tapasvinaha. So, a person becomes famous, he becomes popular, he becomes respected in society, he becomes celebrated because of undergoing tapasya. But then ultimately what happened? After all his tapasya, his own countrymen killed him. Now you compare that with the tapasya undertaken by somebody like Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj also underwent severe tapasya. At the age of 5 years, okay, Gandhiji, when he grew old, until he was, as long as he was a young man, he also had a good life. He was practicing as a barrister. He used to, travel, and he used to stay and eat good food. All those things he also enjoyed. Only in his later age, when he came back from South Africa to India, he took up the role of a tapasvi. But look at Dhruva Maharaj. At 5 years age, he underwent such severe tapasya. So Dhruva Maharaj is also celebrated. But then, Dhruva Maharaj, a person like Gandhiji and other people, they submitted their tapasya for their countrymen. Whereas Dhruva Maharaj did tapasya to please Vishnu, Krishna. So that kind of tapasya is a different kind of tapasya. Dhanapara. There are many people who are charitably disposed. Tapasvino Dhanapara. Anybody who does dana, a lot of dana, he becomes respected in society. So you look at this world, there is somebody like Bill Gates. There is Warren Buffett. They are all highly charitable people, philanthropic people. Very highly respected in this world. But then, after all that dana he did, Bill Gates, finally what happened? His own personal life, when it came out to light, that he had very close relations with a convicted child molested and trafficker, what happened? His whole image was smashed. His own wife left him. She said, I don't want anything to do with this man. Gone. All is Sumangala gone. All is Vikhyata gone. On the other hand, you look at Bali Maharaj. He also gave in charity. He was the owner, he was the ruler of the entire material world. He, from Swargaloka down to Patalaloka, he was ruling over the entire world. This entire universe was at his command. People in this world, when they are giving dana, they give a small percentage. Bill Gates also, even though he did so much dana, charity, he gave only a small percentage of his wealth. Bali Maharaj gave away his entire wealth, his entire kingdom, whatever he possessed, everything he surrendered. He gave away in charity. But to whom did he give in charity? He gave in charity to Vishnu. And so therefore, Bali Maharaj is glorified eternally. He is celebrated eternally. Tapasvino Dhanapara Yashasvinaha. There are many people who become famous. They become famous for various reasons. Somebody is very powerful, he becomes famous. Somebody is very beautiful, he becomes famous. Like you see, we have, Bollywood stars. They are very beautiful to look at, so they become very famous. They have so many fans who drool over them. But you look at one Bollywood star, his son has got caught in the drugs case. And now he and his wife both are crying inconsolably. They are calling people everywhere and trying to get help and get their son released. So his whole image has gone down. His own son, he is not able to, after all his fame and wealth and beauty and all that, his own son, he is not able to give a good life to him. What kind of hero is he? On the other hand, you look at the greatly beautiful personalities like the gopis. They are also highly celebrated. But then all their beauty they have engaged in serving Krishna, not in entertaining people through movies. So the gopis are celebrated so much so, even the Vaikuntavasis, even the Swargavasis, they all yearn to get the dust from the lotus feet of the gopis. Even Lakshmi Devi desires to take the dust from the lotus feet of Radharani. So look at how they are celebrated eternally. So the fame also, when it is surrendered to Krishna, the person becomes highly celebrated. Tapasvino, Danapara, Yashasvino, Mantravidaha, Manasvinaha. Tapasvino, Danapara, Manasvino. There are so many philosophers, very intelligent people. There is Leibniz, there is Kant, Freud, so many people, Aristotle, Plato, they have all, given so much philosophy. And during their time, when they propound their philosophy, they become very famous. And there is also great philosopher like Shukadeva Goswami, great philosopher like Vedavyasa. They philosophized to glorify Krishna. People like, who reads Immanuel Kant and Leibniz and all these people today? Who reads Plato? Who reads Aristotle? They are just names out there. Nobody, and even if somebody reads them also, their life is not going to change because of them. But somebody reads Bhagavatam spoken by Shukadeva Goswami, what will happen? His whole life will turn upside down. He will lose all his interest towards this material world, all his attraction for fame, for glory, for wealth, all this material sense gratification, everything, all the desires for all these things will vanish from one's heart. That is the kind of philosophy that Shukadeva Goswami has given. And then mantra vidaha, somebody is able to recite many verses, he becomes famous. But then the Bhagavatam Shukadeva Goswami is saying, one may be endowed with all such good qualities, but then tapasvino, danapara, yasasvino, manasvido, mantravida, sumangalaha, kshemam navindanti, all their sumangala, all their vikyata, all their fame and glory and all their righteous acts, they may undertake many austerities for the sake of the people. They may earn a lot of wealth and give a lot of charity for the public. They may become very famous because of their talent or their ability or their beauty, or they may be very well versed in the scriptures. They may become famous for all these things, but all their talents, all their abilities and whatever great qualities they possess are all useless unless they utilize those qualities in the service of Subhadra Shravase, of the Supreme Lord Krishna. Kshemam na vindanti vina yad arpanam. Without offering those qualities to Krishna, all those qualities have no meaning. Why? Somebody may ask, why? What is wrong? Somebody is helping people. Somebody, Bill Gates, is giving charity to so many people. Why are you condemning him? He is doing a good thing. You should applaud him for that. Okay, some personal, this one may be there, but then at least he is doing a good thing. So we have to understand that the nature of all kinds of altruistic activities in this material world, it is an extended form of self-centeredness. When a person earns wealth for himself, he is doing a self-centered activity. He is earning wealth for himself. Now, when he starts distributing that wealth in charity, he is doing it for a certain section of the people. He may do it for his community members, or he may do it for the people of his country, or he may do it for the entire humanity. But even though you may do it for the entire humanity, you are doing only for the humankind. Why? Because you feel that humans are my, they are like me. They are humankind. They belong to the same species as I belong to. And so therefore I should help all of them. So why are you not helping the snakes and birds and plants and all those things? No. This is humankind. I want to help humankind. Why humankind you want to help? Because I am also a human being. So it is an extended self-centeredness. My body is there. I want to satisfy my body. Also, I want to extend that, my centering around my body little bit. I extend that circle whoever falls within that circle, similar to my body, they are all humankind. So I will help them. So this kind of helping is not very highly glorified. Although people in this material world glorify, oh, look at Karna, he is such a charitable person. That is why you will see in all serials, they will glorify Karna and they will make him a victim. And they will show as if Karna is a great personality. Actually, he was better than the Pandavas. That's how they show him. But just by being charitable, it's not a highly glorified thing. Why? Because just like, for example, if a person goes and steals, he steals something from someone for his own benefit. For filling his belly, he goes and steals money from someone. He goes and robs a bank. And that money he uses to buy himself a nice car, good watch, good mobile and all those things. What will happen? Is it glorified? No, he's a criminal. He has to be put behind bars. Now, another guy went and robbed a bank and the police caught him. And they took him to court. And in the court, he comes and tells, oh my Lord, addresses the judge, oh my Lord, you see, all the money that I looted from the bank, I have used it for helping all the people of my community. All my country people I have distributed to them, I wanted to help them, therefore I looted the money. So, I am not a criminal. Will the court listen to that? No, sir, you may think you are Robin Hood. But Robin Hood and all in comics is nice. But in the real world, if somebody tries to become a Robin Hood, he will not be a hero. People will not write novels and comics about him. He will go behind bars. He will become a criminal. So, if I am stealing somebody else's property, whether I use it for myself or helping people around me, it doesn't make a difference. I am still a criminal. That's the reality. This is the harsh reality. In a similar way, we have to understand that whatever is there in this entire world, to whom does it belong? I have come into this material world for a small portion of time. I may live for 80 years, 90 years, 100 years. Maximum 100 years I will live. During this time, I managed to accumulate some wealth. And I am thinking, this is my wealth. And so I will distribute it to my people. But reality is, before I was born, that wealth was here only. It was here only. When I was born, I did not bring that wealth from my mother's womb along with me in my hand. Did I? No. That wealth was already existing in this world. I grew up, then I did something. I managed to accumulate some of that wealth which was already existing in this world. And after I die, when I die, I am not going to take that wealth and go with me. I am going to leave it behind here. Somebody else will claim it is his. So, reality is, for a short period of time, I get some wealth in my hand and I start claiming it is mine. Reality is, it was never mine. Similarly, when I am born into this world, I manage to assimilate some land. I say it is my land. This is my flat. This is my house. This is my property. This is my country. But this country, this land, everything was there before I was born, and after I die, it will remain here only. It is not that before I was born, there was vacuum, and after I got born, suddenly along with my birth, I created one piece of land. No, that land was always there. And it is not that when I die, all my properties that I have, they will become vacuum. There will be nothing existing there. No, that land will still be there only. So we have to ask the question, to whom does all this wealth and land actually belong to? Does it belong to me? No. I am enjoying them for a few years when I am here in this world. But it actually belongs to somebody else. To whom does it belong? It belongs to the person who created all the gold and silver and all the mountains and the rivers and the earth and the sun and the moon. The person who created all of these, it belongs to him. And that creator is Krishna. So, everything belongs to Krishna, and I am coming into this world for a few years and claiming all this wealth is mine, and I am doling out charity to all my humankind. I am a criminal. Whether I use that wealth for my own sense gratification or I give it in charity, becoming a big person, both ways I am still a criminal in the cosmic scale if you look at things from the spiritual perspective. Therefore, Vinayadarpanam, whatever we have, if we don't surrender it to Krishna, if we don't offer it to Krishna, then all our Vikhyata, all our Sumangala is all useless. We remain criminals in the eyes of the Supreme Lord. So therefore, the greatness of Emperor Swayambhuva Manu was, all his righteous acts, he surrendered to Krishna, he was a great devotee of Krishna. And so therefore, the Bhagavatam is talking about him and glorifying him. So all personalities, whether it is Dhruva Maharaj, whether it is Bali Maharaj, whether it is the Gopis, all these great personalities, whether it is Sukadeva Goswami, Tapasvino, Danapara, Yashasvino, Manasvino, Mantravidas, Sumangalaha, they are all Sumangala, they are highly celebrated eternally. Why? Because Arpanam, Subhadrashravase, they all surrendered their great qualities to Krishna, knowing that he is the original owner of everything. So therefore, if we want to become really Vikhyata Sumangala, if we want to become eternally celebrated personalities, then the only way is to surrender everything that we possess at Krishna's lotus feet, instead of trying to enjoy it ourselves or share it with other human beings around us, either in our community or nation or the entire earth, thinking that by doing this, I'll become celebrated and I'll become famous. That kind of fame is temporary, it will not last, and it is ultimately, if you look at it from a spiritual perspective, one way it is condemned. It is not to be glorified. The really glorified activity is to surrender everything to Krishna. This is what we have to understand. If there are any questions or comments, we can discuss.
Hare Krishna, bro.
Hare Krishna.
Bro, as we discuss in this Bhumandala, our earth, we discuss the Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, all that. So even other planetary system in the universe also discuss the same topics? Or
other planetary systems also?
Also discuss the Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita.
Where do they discuss Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita?
Yes. And lower planetary system.
Lower planetary systems also do they discuss? Okay. See, the classification of upper and lower and middle planetary systems in the Vedas is done on what basis? The basis is not material conveniences or facilities. If you look at the lower planetary systems, they have also a lot of great opulence. There is one Nagaloka. There is a planetary system of serpents. There the serpents have hoods, and on the hoods they have valuable diamonds. They are born with diamonds on their heads. That is the kind of opulence that they have. So for them, diamond is nothing. You know, what is diamond? Everybody has a diamond. Everybody is born with a diamond. For us, diamond means, oh, somebody shows a ring. See, this is original diamond. You're like, oh, really opulent guy. Because very rare to find somebody who can own a diamond like that in this earth. So, if you look at the material facilities for sense gratification, the kind of facilities which are available, conveniences, material conveniences which are available, luxuries which are available, they are more in the lower planetary system and in the upper planetary systems. It is only in the earthly planetary systems, in the Bhuloka, that you get to see equal amount of happiness and distress. We see there are third world countries also in this earthly planetary systems, and there are developed nations also, where the facilities, the luxury of living is very high, the standard of life is very high. And there are countries like Somalia, Syria and all, where Afghanistan and all, where you don't know whether you will be alive tomorrow. Where you will get your food, you don't know. So we are able to see both kinds of things in this world. Whereas in the lower and upper planetary systems, there are a lot of luxuries, there are a lot of the conveniences and facilities are very high. So the classification into lower, middle and upper planetary systems is not based on the material conveniences. Then what is the basis of classification? The basis of classification is the availability of spiritual knowledge. The lower planetary systems are called lower because the availability of spiritual knowledge is very limited. The awareness, the consciousness, the spiritual consciousness and awareness of the people in the lower planetary systems is very low. They are totally into material sense gratification. Whereas in this earthly planetary system, we have equal. There is ignorance also, there are enlightened people also. The spiritual knowledge is also there, material knowledge is also there. In the upper planetary system, the consciousness of the people is very advanced in terms of spirituality. They are well aware of the position of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, their awareness of Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita and all, it is common knowledge there. That is why in the upper planetary systems, they keep organizing Sankirtana, where all the devatas will come together. So, like generally in this material world, what happens is, people when they want to enjoy, they will organize a rock show. And they will sing all material songs. Similarly, in the Swargaloka also they organize such musical performances. But in those musical performances, they sing about the glories of Vishnu. They organize Sankirtanas, Sankirtana Yajnas. So that means, if they have to glorify Vishnu, they should know what are his glories. So the knowledge of Bhagavatam has to be there. Otherwise, how will they glorify Vishnu? So therefore, we can understand that the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam are freely available in the upper planetary systems. In the middle planetary system, in the earthly planetary system, you have to do a little bit of endeavor. You have to search, you have to be inquisitive. You will not get it easily, but it is available. In the lower planetary system, it is practically not available. That is how we have to understand. Is that okay? So that way, if you see, the upper planetary systems, the availability it will be very easily available, and it will be common knowledge. Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, practically everyone will be aware. So, whereas in the lower planetary systems, nobody will be aware of the glories of Vishnu. That's how we understand. Is that okay? Anything else? Yes, please.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Kardama Muni, considered as a leader of the living entities, is a great sage. He was practicing Kriya Yoga, like a mode of Bhakti Yoga.
Yeah.
So how to understand that Kardama Muni did 10,000 years tapasya just to get a wife, this act of doing tapasya for long years?
But actually, Prabhupada, you will see in the upcoming purports, Prabhupada mentions in one place, we will see that. Prabhupada says that Kardama Muni could have asked for anything. He could have asked for liberation. He could have asked for pure devotional service, but he didn't ask. So there, Prabhupada mentions in one purport that liberation is not meant for everyone. Everyone may do devotional service, but liberation is not for everyone. That's number one. Number two, we have to also understand that Kardama Muni did not execute Kriya Yoga with the sole intention of only pleasing Krishna. That was, he wanted to please Krishna, but there was a reason behind that. The reason was, he wanted to please Vishnu to be able to execute his duty, his dharma properly. What was his dharma? To carry out the instructions of his father, who was his spiritual master. So his spiritual master, his father, had ordered him that he has to create progeny. And so therefore, to execute that dharma, duty, he felt himself incapable of doing it. So he thought, let me please Vishnu and get a benediction from him by which I can fulfill my duty. So Kardama Muni seeking a wife was not that I want to enjoy a wife, I want to enjoy a woman, so let me please Vishnu and get a woman to enjoy. That was not his spirit. His spirit is, oh, my father, my spiritual master has ordered me that I should create progeny, and for that I have to have a wife. So how do I get a proper wife by which I'll be able to satisfy my father and follow his instructions properly by creating progeny who will be of good quality, which will be pleasing to Brahmaji, my father. How to do that? Let me take the help of Vishnu. You understand? So his asking a wife was also not for his own sense pleasure. It was in the execution of his duty, of his dharma. So therefore, he asked. But eventually, as we will see even in the life of Kardama Muni, eventually he gave up that wife also and he executed devotional service and perfected his life. So once he had executed his duty, his father had told him create progeny. He created progeny. over, left the family. He did not stick on, thinking that let me continue enjoying with my wife. No, he gave up. Moment his duty is over, gave up. So that itself shows that Kardama Muni is not an ordinary personality. So his execution of Kriya Yoga also, in that sense, was not for some satisfaction or sense gratification. It was for a higher purpose, for the execution of a duty. Is that okay? We'll stop here. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.